Good morning, everybody. Thanks for joining us today. I'm B2B. That's Mark Putrino, your professor and guide through the markets. He's going to tell you what you need to know today. Good morning, Mark.
Hey, how's it going?
Excellent. Excellent. I'm glad to see Joe went to Israel. I wish he had gone to East Palestine, but Israel's cool.
Yeah, he's just gonna screw up whatever's going on over there, dude. You know
Well, I
what worries
listened to
me?
this. Hmm.
He's so he's so he's so dumb and misinformed that I'm afraid that when he says Biden backs Israel over blast at Gaza hospital, that makes me think it's like he's wrong and it actually was Israel. You know?
No, I listened to his press conference just a few minutes ago. They had it on Sky News Australia, and he just basically said the same weak ass stuff where he just doesn't want to pick a side. And he called the other team was the one that took out the hospital, not Israel. And it's like, you really got to call these people what they are. Words mean something, and when you dodge the words and you skip around them, you're really not doing anything.
Well, this is what you get when you have a corrupt guy who's got no core principles running the show. So, you
Elections
know,
have consequences.
I mean, I don't even think this war. If Trump was in office, this wouldn't have been going on.
No, man, this
The
wouldn't
Ukraine
happen.
war wouldn't
Mark,
have been going on. You know
I
what
don't
it
know
is?
if
I
you.
think people know that his days are numbered, so they figure we better do what we got to do now because we only have a short amount of time left.
Well, they
So,
see the people of America are fed up with this cat. And what really scares me is if we get kicked off into a war and they give this guy war powers, and if they do that, then we're stuck with him. And that's unacceptable. We don't need to be in war until we get an election.
well, you know what, dude? All right, you're gonna have to elaborate that on that, Mr. Steven, about the blast radius. Well, you know what I think is going to happen, unfortunately, and I hope it doesn't, but I think there's a good chance there's going to be a terrorist attack here. It's going to be people that came over the open border, and then even his own party is going to have no choice but to get rid of him.
Yeah,
So,
I thoroughly agree with that.
I mean, if there's one time the country's been united, it was after, those few days after 9/11.
Well, you know something, we have to stop being so polarized by each other, and we have to stop this fundamental run to each polar side of the political spectrum. And everybody needs to come back to the center and say, you know what? We're Americans first. I can have this opinion about this guy over here. I can have this opinion about the way things should go, but let's debate it. We don't debate it anymore. You just got people in a dark room signing documents and getting policies pushed, and then they'll follow the bad policy and they'll skip the good policy, and it's just it's bureaucracy that's causing
Yeah,
us all these problems.
it's human nature, dude. People have
Yeah,
been, you go back to the Hamiltonians and the Jeffersonians. They hated each other. I
yeah.
mean, the Jeffersonians thought Hamilton was an agent of England, and so it's just human nature. So I don't think anything's going to change. But anyway, you know what? This is a good example here, right off the bat, about misleading headlines. All right, crude prices surge after deadly Gaza hospital blast. Now, if I go and look at the crude oil price here,
That ain't a
does this,
surge.
does this look like a surge to you?
Not one bit.
You know what I mean? So it's just like the headlines, they can't just put out a headline.
It's got to have an opinion stuffed in it and made truth. When it's not truth, it's an opinion. I mean, we know what opinions are, right? They're like assholes. Everybody has one.
Right. uh, um, well, I don't know, man. I think it's people that write these articles really don't get what's going on. But if you were to look at that, you would think oil was doing something like this. But in reality, it's like if you look at this chart, you wouldn't know that there was any big news going on. So just I don't know. It's just a pet peeve that I have is these misleading articles. Let's see if we can find another one. Wall Street's biggest bear. Let's see who are Wall Street's biggest bears. Do you know the biggest bear in the world is a polar bear, and they've been seen swimming 80 miles from shore?
Holy smokes. That's a tough dude.
Yeah, dude. And also, I saw this too. A bear can smell an animal carcass at 18 miles away. So that's pretty amazing too.
That's incredible.
Yeah, this guy Morgan Stanley. I mean, I don't know how good he is, but he's been like the perma bear. So I don't know if we should keep listening to him. But when they say Wall Street's biggest bear, this guy's he's just like a continuous perma bear. And I think if you're a perma bear, then like eventually you're going to be right. Eventually the market's going to go lower. All right, let's see. S&P is stuck between rising support and falling resistance. Now, I don't really go for the whole moving average thing. I don't know. I mean, I guess some people kind of trade off of them. Let me just go bring it up here. Um, because there are probably people that trade based on the moving average, but I don't think it's if you know why support and resistance form, you would understand why I don't think there's probably not going to be significant support or resistance at the 200-day moving average. But I actually heard someone speaking about this, and I was going to look it up today. So let's see, SPY and funds and yeah. Now, like they're saying, there's support at the 200-day moving average, but this is really a trailing indicator. I mean, see, sometimes you get exact things, you get things like this, but what about here? You know what I mean? Like it's like one of those Rorschach tests. And this resistance here goes back to, yeah. So I mean, to me, there's resistance there because there was resistance over here.
That's just somebody trying to write a story and find a bottom.
Yeah, well, people talk about moving averages, but you see, sometimes they look like they're support, like here, but a lot of times they don't, like over here. So when you get something like this, you know what? I'm going to put it up on a chart that's easier to read. SPX.
Go full screen for the folks so they can get a good peek.
All right, so here, yeah. So when you get something like this or like this, the moving average people kind of come out of the woodwork and they're like, oh, yeah, I found support at the 200-day moving average or found resistance at the 200-day moving average. But then when you get stuff like this, you don't really hear people talking about it where the signals are far from clear. But it's really just a backwards looking number. It's the average price of the last 200 days closing prices. Now, I would say that there was support here because there is resistance over here.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess you could argue maybe it's a little bit of a self-fulfilling prophecy because some people may be buying it, or there might be some models that are doing moving average crossovers. But I just think that your time is probably better spent elsewhere. But then again, you know what, dude? Everyone's got to come up with their own style, and there are people that trade moving averages quite successfully. Generally, though, the moving average that they're trading would be a moving average crossover. So you have
Right.
you would have a longer term moving average, and let's make that just to
And then
make
throw
it.
a 50 up there. Yeah.
Well, I was going to go with like 10 and 20.
Yeah. Yeah. 10 and 20. Or I did a 9 and 21 when I started.
Yeah, it's probably like whatever you're trading, you probably just got to look at it and see which one kind of works the best. Because, like we know, every security or market has a personality. So, what on one stock a 10 and 20 might work really good, and on another stock a 9 and 21 day might work really good.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, so this would be like your typical moving average system. So if you think about this conceptually, right? And then, wow, this actually looks like it worked pretty good here. If you think about this conceptually, the moving average is the average closing price, in this case, a simple moving average, over X many days. So if the price of the short term average, say the last 10 days, is higher than the price of the last, say, 20 days, then there's a good sign the market's moving higher. If the price is lower, if the shorter term price is lower than the longer term price, there's a good chance the market's moving lower. So the idea here is when the shorter term crosses above the longer term, you buy. So in this case here, you would have bought around 38.50. And when the shorter term crosses below the longer term, you sell. So you would have sold at about 40.50. Then if you went short, you would have gone short. You would have bought back here. So this actually works on this actually very well. I mean, you would have gotten a false signal in here and up here. But that's the idea. And the reason why people like moving averages is because there's no subjectivity. It's just it's like, hey, the crossover happened. That's your signal. So don't ignore it and just go do what you got to do. But still, though, it goes back to our thing. On paper, it's easy to trade. In real life, someone might say, you know what? I went long and now it's going to have me sell and I'm going to lose money. I'm going to hold on to it and hope that it comes back. So moving average crossover styles or strategies will work if, just like other things will work, if you have the emotional fortitude to stick with your system. Trading models are like, they're like gyms, right? They're good in theory, but they're only good if you actually have the discipline to go to them.
Absolutely. And hopium is not something we teach here at Stock Market Jobber. You're going to learn to trade. No hope here. You set when you go into a trade, you know what it's going to do or you don't.
Yeah, when you're a trader, you should never use the word hope or luck, at least as it pertains to trading.
Absolutely.
So look at this. So another big move higher in interest rates. So this is going to be weighing on the market. This is going to be 5% before you know it.
Yeah.
Think about it, right? So let's invert this and think about the bond action that is driving this. Interest rates are inverse to bonds. So doesn't this look like it's like aggressive selling here?
Yeah.
Right. So we got down here, not surprisingly, because we broke below support. But you tend to get gaps at the beginning of trends and at the end of trends. And we just had a little bit move up. So you could argue that this is a new trend starting. And this is three. Ooh,
We're in trouble.
Roden is doing his little morning workout.
We're in financial trouble.
Yeah. So this is, I don't really know what this is. This could be the government selling bonds in the open market to raise money to pay off all this stuff that's going on here. I mean, money's got to come from somewhere. So they're either printing it out of thin air or selling it. I don't know, dude. I don't think anyone knows what the hell's going on. But let's go back to all right. Sometimes there's only one or two things that we need to focus on to kind of get a general feel of where the broader market's going to go. And I would say that would be their financial sector, because this 3360 level has been important, right? We got up to 3372 yesterday. This morning we're at 3354. This is an important price level going back to December of 22. So support there became resistance here, support here. If this doesn't break through, it's eventually going to roll over and go lower. I mean, it's not going to stay at 3360 for the end of time. It's going to go one way or the other. With interest rates going up like that, with the Middle East being the way it is, I think my guess is that it rolls over and goes lower. So if we go back to the S&P, if you're someone who trades SPY, you're pinned right up against this 136 level now. Well, I'm sorry, 436. Down a little bit this morning, but once again, we ran into resistance at the same level that's been resistance over the last few days. All right. So I just don't see SPY getting above this as long as the financial sector is below the level we just talked about. I don't know. If it happens, it happens, right? The market is smarter than I am, but I just have a hard time conceiving of that, because higher interest rates are they're just bad for stocks. That adds to companies' costs. It creates competition.
Bad for everything. You can't afford a house. I mean, look, the prices of houses are so high now that it's not even funny because of COVID. And then you throw in interest on top of it, and you're paying $2,000 a month for a $500 house.
Yeah, it's a shame, because a lot of younger people that wanted to buy houses,
they won't ever get a chance to. Or it'll take 10 years for it to straighten out, like always. They break it, and then it takes a while to fix it.
My wife wants to sell our house. She's like, now that the girls are out, she's like, what?
Mark, the market's hot, man. You should sell it while it's high and find a place cheap to live and just go in here and be debt free. It's an amazing feeling to be debt free, pal.
Yeah, I want to know, man. I want to know, but yeah. Well, she's just like, she's upset because like, but because when stuff breaks, it's like you got to fix it, right?
Yeah.
So, I got to get our gutters have to be clean. That's going to be our next thing, and I got to get our generator fixed. Stopped working, but I think it just needs a tune-up. It might be out of oil, so I'll have to go check on that. But anyway, that's a little neither here nor there. But I've been here my whole life in Connecticut. So I'm just thinking it'd be nice to see the rest of the world from a different vantage point.
It's nice, man. It's nice to get a different sunrise and different sunset every once in a while.
Yeah. All right. So anyway, here's our tech sector. Looks like it's rolling over a little bit. So I would say this looks somewhat bearish, trending lower. Right. We get into this range where we had this fast move higher. Okay. All right. So next is our healthcare sector. Yeah. So this is pinned up against resistance as well here. So you got healthcare is the second biggest sector. Well, so let's think about this. You got the biggest sector, which is tech. It looks like it's rolling over and going to trend lower. You got the the second and the third biggest sector, healthcare and financials, pinned up against resistance. So those are three kind of bearish, I guess, dynamics. So that could put a top on the market. All right, so here's our consumer discretionary sector, and this to me looks pretty neutral here. And then we got our industrials. This is also trading up against resistance. So a good part of the market here in terms of percentage is up against resistance. We go to here's our picture of the size of the sectors or the different sectors. So we got healthcare, financials, and industrials all at resistance. So that's about a third of the market, right? 13 plus 8 plus 12. And communication services, let's take a look at that. And this is up against resistance as well. We can see this is in a pretty well-formed range here. So you got tech is trending lower, and pretty much these other sectors are all up against resistance. You got interest rates making a rapid move higher. So to me, that sets the market up for a move lower. Let's see what else are we missing here. Communication services, industrials, consumer discretionary. Like that. Now these guys are all kind of smaller here. Staples, energy. Energy could affect the market, even though it's only 4.6%. And consumer staples, sometimes money starts to flow in there before the market goes lower. So that can give you some signs too. Utilities, material, and real estate, they're also small. They don't really affect the broader markets, but doesn't mean we shouldn't look at them. Like, for example, if interest rates really start to move higher again, and it looks like they are, I think it's a given that the 10 years going to get to 5%. But then utilities will probably start to move lower again. See, this big move here came when we had that spike in interest rates. People buy utilities because they want income generally. They're buying it for the dividend. A lot of older people or retired people will buy. So when the rates were spiking up, people were selling their utility stocks because they could go get better yields in the bond market. So this is something to keep an eye on too. And again, we could go look at the utility sector and see all the companies that are in it here, right? Like I think we went through this yesterday, and just look for things that look on the weaker side. What looks out of all these companies, and this is just the top 10. This is not the entire sector. So we can go through some of the other ones as well. Let me see how many companies are in this sector here. So, all right. So it looks like there's 35 companies. American Waterworks, we've looked at before. Eversource Energy. Oh, let's look at that. That's my energy company. ES, Eversource. Yeah, well, the stock looks, I don't know. Looks like it'll probably keep trending lower. But anyway, it's just a little exercise to go through here.
Can you pull up that ESG that just popped across your screen? I didn't see that fund before. I'd like to see where it's at right now.
Which one?
ESG. It's a fund. There you go, the flex shares. This is that global climate change. Wow.
Well, here's the trouble with this, though. It don't look at it only trades 1,000 shares a day or 1,600 shares a day, so it hasn't caught on. Let's
Yeah.
see. So this thing has been around for, gosh, it's been around for like going on 7 years, and it's never gotten any traction. So these guys are taking it. It costs a lot of money to keep an ETF going. You gotta because I guess mainly because you have big legal fees. But if you never get any traction, if there's not a, I mean, they make money by the volume, and if there is not a lot of volume, they're losing money. So it's kind of hard for me to understand how this could be around for so long. Because generally, if these things are around for a year or two and they don't catch on, the companies just shut them down.
Well, this is all part of that environmental, social, and governance. That's what ESG stands for.
Yeah, maybe they're just
Part of
keeping it
the
open because they think it might catch on.
right.
But there's probably something that does the same thing that's much more popular. Um, so that's where the volume migrates to, like the Vanguard ESG US Stock Trust, that stock ETF. So now this trades about 160,000 shares a day, so that's pretty decent volume. So people are probably more. All right, so I just want to see. So that's that, and that's, let me go 1 year. So 1 year. All right, hold on 1 second. What's the Vanguard one?
Oh, I didn't see what it was, what the symbol was.
All right, well, let's do this again here.
Sorry.
All right, so I just want to compare
ESG.
these. All right, so here's 1 year of this, and then
ESGV.
ESG. So here's 1 year of that. Yeah, so I mean, you can see that they invest in the same things. I mean, their charts
Right.
are pretty much identical. So in a situation like this, your better bet is to go with the one that trades more volume, so you don't get, if something's only trading 1,000 shares a day and someone goes in and sells 1,000 shares, I mean, they could knock that thing down a couple percent. You know what I mean?
It'd
So,
be nice to short all those things to death so that that shit dies.
what was I going to look up here? All right. So natural gas is getting to the point where it might be looking like it's time to buy. See, getting back to a former resistance level, and we know that levels that were resistance can convert into support. So I would be looking at this for a potential bounce here. Yeah, I mean maybe. I mean we're only talking about a few cents, but yeah, I would keep this. So this is going to be on the radar screen to watch.
Hmm.
This thing gets down in about. I mean, it's only about 10 cents above this $3 level, but it could start to reverse here, and then you just maybe you look at it and say, all right, where's an important threshold to get above? I don't know, maybe three up here, 320. You jump in, but it's all right. So this is going to be officially on our radar screen for a potential move higher. Go back to this here. Big boy there. Yeah. So misleading paragraph headline here. All right. So let's see. Iran reportedly calls for Israel oil embargo. So what would that potentially mean?
Israel doesn't really produce a bunch of oil.
Well, maybe they're calling for an embargo on the way in as opposed to on the way out.
Right. Didn't think about that. I doubt anybody's siding with the Palestinians after the video of that hospital.
Oh, dude, people. Well, people. Yeah, I mean, they're just going to say that it's all false. But there's a lot of stuff goes on. Like we heard all that story about they found the 40 babies with their heads cut off. It's like that kind of just flew off into nowhere. So that probably wasn't a true story.
Except for the people that are going across the border into Gaza, they know about it really well. The people that are going in there to fix the problem, those
Yeah.
people know about those 40 babies. Trust me.
Well, I just it was in the news and now it's kind of just disappeared. So
Well, the problem is that these things go on for so long, and Hamas knows this. The longer that they can make this go on, the more the world's appearance of Israel sours. And we have to stop that. We have to allow Israel to go in there and bury it. and fix it. Put in some beach resorts or build back Gaza and make it a nice place for the Gazans to live. But Hamas has got to go. Those people are evil.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I don't know. I think Israel's will end up taking care of things on their own.
I do too.
Because and they have before. They've attacked Iran before. They've taken out some of the Iranian nuclear programs before. I mean, I don't remember exactly when. Look at this: China leaders direct jet fighter harassment of U.S. aircraft. See, this is what I always say, that like wars could break out by accident a lot of times. Like for instance, the thing with the hospital over there, right? It's a missile goes awry and it blows the wrong thing up, or someone accidentally shoots down the wrong plane, or so that's why it concerns me. It's because all it takes is like one person somewhere, to some rogue officer to disobey orders. You know, you just never know. These people are fighting. They've been at war for literally like 2,000 years, so we really can't understand the level of hatred that exists in between them. All right, let's see. There's a couple old churches in my neighborhood that have been turned into homes. Because back like when there was farms and I guess people could only take their horses, you'd have, like there's a lot of those little old one schoolroom houses that have been turned into,
Yeah.
or those old one room schoolhouses that have been turned into houses. And
Yeah.
there's a lot of old churches that have been turned into houses around here. This used to be, there's a bunch of old houses here from the 1700s too.
Oh, yeah.
All right, so let's see. Biden backs Israel, Summit in Jordan canceled, fears of regionalization grow. All right, let's see what this is. Wall Street's latest obsession is an unknowable number. All right, let's see. A number that exists only in theory. Okay. Known as term premium, the number is typically defined as the component of treasury yields that reflects everything other than investors' baseline expectations for short-term interest rates set by the Federal Reserve.
That's word
like,
salad.
Huh?
That's word salad.
It's like it's like, well, ask your son about this, right? It's like physicists,
Right.
like everything in the universe, the weights don't weigh up to what theory says. So it's like, oh, we'll just call it dark matter. We'll just make something up.
Right.
Instead of saying we're wrong and reworking our math, we'll just call it dark matter. So a little astronomy thing there for you.
Yes, sir.
All right, so let's see here. What else can we look at? Bonds look cheap. Halloween indicator. No. ASML shares. Let's look at that.
Guys, do you have any tickers that you'd like Mark to look at? If you do, put them in the chat.
AMSL Holdings. So this is down at 592, which not that big of a move lower. It's a stock we've never looked at before. I don't think there's no black lines on it.
Yeah.
But even here, you can see now this is more of a volatile nature, but we can see some of our principles, right? Support over here became resistance over here. This stock just happens to be volatile, and that's based on the people who are trading it, because whoever trades this must just have a more aggressive style than things that don't have a lot of volatility. Abbott Labs. Beats. Let's see about that. APT. Yeah, so where is this trading? 94.24. Yeah, so now my guess is if I was trading this, I would be looking for resistance like right here. 95.50. See how it was this clear kind of bottom here? We know that there tends to be resistance at former support levels. So that's what I would be looking at if I was trading that. Abbott Laboratories sales decline, raises earnings outlook.
We got an XLF and wheat in the chat, Mark.
Well, XLF was that all about that uh, the 33 50, 60 level. So right now this thing is at a crossroads. I don't know which way it's going to go, but if I had to guess, I would say it's going to go down because it's a pretty big move in interest rates, right? And a lot of times things don't really affect the market, but to the degree that the media would have you think they do. But one thing that does affect the market is interest rates because it goes right to the company's bottom lines. So if we look at our interest rates here, up to 4.84%. So we're at like 15-year highs here.
And then we got wheat.
I don't know, man. It looks to me like wheat is just kind of. Look at the future. It's just, well, I guess it's kind of stabilized. So remember, now the wheat ETF is going to be based on this. So you're better off maybe watching this. But notice how this. Let's see what level this is here. I'm going to go at 592 just to make the math easy. 592. Right. So what was support here and here has come into resistance. So we're at 577. And then if you want to get kind of more detailed or more precise, looks like there's been some more short-term resistance around 580. But you do have these higher lows here, which could be our old ascending triangle formation, which would be bullish. So let's think about this. Your sellers are hanging out up around 580. They're like taking a stand, 580. But the buyers are getting more aggressive, which means they're willing to pay higher prices. That's why these lower prices are getting higher. So that would be a short-term bullish to break this, I would presume. And then next stop would probably be 592. But let's see. Just thinking, how would interest rates affect this? I don't know if there would have any short-term effect. But yeah, so that's what sticks out to me here is you got these lower highs, you got the short-term resistance here. And you could even pull this back and say this resistance here was support over here. And then like if you'll notice on these couple of days here, we got up to 592. Now, if you don't trade futures, you can get exposure in the ETF market with this wheat ETF. So now you'll notice it doesn't look exactly like it, but that's because futures markets. Yeah, so notice how the charts really don't look 100% similar. And that's because of the fact that the futures markets are open at different hours. And there's also just the ways the ETFs are constructed. But it's still going to track wheat. So my advice is if you're trading a commodities ETF, to watch the commodity and base your decisions based on that, as opposed to what's going on in the actual commodity ETF. Like if you think about it, say you're trading an oil ETF. What is that? USO. All right. This is only open from 9:30 in the morning till 4 o'clock, or that's all it trades. Oil trades around the clock, 24/7. So just because of that, the charts are going to look different. But ultimately, USO is always going to follow oil.
We got Double H asking about Procter and Gamble, and then I'll be asking about TLT and TMF.
Well, to go to the Procter Gamble, I think it's important to see that this is the sector, right? And the sector has held this support. So there was support back in last September and October. And as we know, support can form at former support levels because you have or people who sold back here who regret their decision when the price moved higher. Then it finally gets back down to their price and they're going to buy it back, right? And then there starts to be like a bidding war sometimes. Buyers start to get afraid that the other buyers are going to outbid them, so they increase their bid prices and so forth and so on. So the sector looks okay here. So if we look within the sector, Procter and Gamble is our biggest company. But if it looks like the sector is going to move, we can look for the specific companies that look like they're going to move the most. So here are our biggest companies in the consumer staples sector. And if we go to Procter and Gamble, the Golden Dragon China ETF. Wow. Interesting. The Golden Dragon.
And what they used to call opium.
Sounds like a Chinese restaurant. Golden Dragon. Shouldn't get myself in trouble there. Let's see. All right. So go back to PG. Procter and Gamble. And let's see what this looks like. Yeah, now this looks pretty similar, which makes sense because it's the biggest company in the ETF. So now why are we moving higher here? Okay, so it's on earnings. So this could get the sector moving. This is the biggest company in the sector. Say it's 14% of it. So this is in some way, shape, or form going to influence the rest of these guys because this is going to pressure the ETF to move higher, and that's going to put pressure on all the stocks in the ETF to move higher. So we can just look at Costco. So this could be on the verge of a breakout here. But I don't know. I just would be a little leery of being long any kind of equities with the interest rate situation. But, you just go for the ride, I guess, until it looks like it's going to change. So Costco basically testing this resistance here. Now, what is a breakout? Well, what's resistance? Resistance is a lot of people that are trying to sell at or around the same price. In this case, it's about 572, 573. That's where we are in the pre-market, 573. So a breakout happens when the price gets above it. And these breakouts are not merely symbolic things. They tell us that the investors who created the resistance with their sell orders have left the market. Maybe they canceled their orders. Maybe they finished their orders. But regardless, they're out of the way. So whenever you take supply out of a market, it sets the stage for the price to move higher. But it's too soon to know if it's breaking out yet. So this is something else we got to keep an eye on. If it doesn't break out, what's going to happen? It's probably going to turn after a few days and have a rapid move lower, just like it did here. I mean, look at this. In 2 days, it went from 570 down to 540. I mean, it came back. Or here, we get up here and we get the sell off. We had been looking at Pepsi for a potential trade.
Hershey's as well. Excuse me, Hershey too.
Yeah, look at this. This is kind of amazing here. So, like this, the low trade on this day, October 6th, was pretty much to the penny of the low trades of June of last year. So you talk about market memory. So Hershey is a staple, huh?
Yeah.
Now, the way you would think about doing something like this, or at least that I would. Yeah, I mean, it's oversold. It's got a really clear trend. So potential idea to jump in here would be like, all right, when it gets, if the Procter and Gamble gets the sector moving, this will probably break this trend line. Now, if you look really close, what has happened? So the red team has been pushing this thing lower. But for the last 4 days, we've actually gone sideways. So we've stopped going lower. When something's moving lower, the first thing it needs to do before it starts moving higher is to stop going lower. And this has stopped going lower for the last 4 days. So a potential strategy here is if we cross this trend line, that's when you get in and buy. So I would say today is 199.25 or 191.25. If this moves sideways for another 2 days, then this downtrend line will be broken. And then maybe that's when you think about getting in, or maybe another potential way would be to like look for a price level that had been important, like here, see how low trade there, open there, close there. So this is 194.50. So another way to think about it, if you're more risk adverse, would be like, all right, I'll buy it if it gets back above 194.40, because it could still keep trending lower. We want to wait for it to start to move higher before we jump in. Oh, is that
Uh,
Roman? Roman.
we got TLT from Avi or TMF, and then Windward wants you to look at GNE.
Oh, and Jeannie's here. Hello, Jeannie. Hello, Avi. Let's see. TLT. Is it the right time to enter a position? I mean, I don't like to give specific recommendations because I could be wrong, but me personally, I don't think I would get into it yet because I think interest rates are going to move higher. So this is going to move lower if interest rates move higher, and I think the 10-year yields at 4.85. Maybe we revisit this if it gets up to say 5%, which at the way it's going, that could be happening within a couple days. So I think it would probably be a little bit too early. TMF, yeah. Oh, well, look at this. So this is the bull. See, if we look at interest rates, right? I mean, it just looks to me like this. See, we got overbought, and this is how markets, this is how markets move, right? They get overbought, then they kind of chill out and consolidate a little. Then they're not overbought. Then they make another move higher. Because once they get overbought, it's kind of hard for them to move a little bit higher because that's going to be bringing sellers into the market. But then it took a couple of days off, but now the trend looks like it's back in gear, and now it's not overbought anymore. So maybe after a few more up days, it'll become overbought once again. But right now, because we had this little downtrend here, the momentum here is pretty neutral now. Potential spam.
You
All
got
right, so
GNE.
GNE. Genie Energy. We were looking at this for a potential reversal, but notice how it hasn't reversed yet. So I think yesterday I was talking about, all right, well, this could be a level could be your trigger. The fact that it's really overbought, the fact that it's up huge on apparently no news. I mean, look at how overbought it is.
Yeah, and still no news.
It could be like, unless this is caught up in is this like in some Reddit chat room somewhere? Is that what's going on here?
I don't know. I don't get on Reddit. Double H does though. Double H, you seen this anywhere?
All right, so the last time this stock was as bought as it was now is in May of 15. So let's go back to May of 15. So that was like right here, right before we had this massive move lower. And look at that. So this is a long time ago. This is 10 years ago. But when you get a move like this, if there's no news behind it, it just can't go on forever. At some point it's going to reverse. So it's up a little bit this morning. Now I would raise if I'm going to jump into this, what would be my trigger? What price level would need to be crossed for me to get conviction that this reversal that I'm anticipating is actually going to happen, or it has started. So yesterday we had our trigger here. What we could do now that it's even more extended is we could just bump it up a little bit. So I'm going to bump up from 1870. Now my new trigger is going to be 1920. So if this falls back below 1920, that's where I might think about getting in. Or considering how overbought it is, I might even move this up to here. If we get back below 1975, that's where I take a position on the short side, meaning I buy puts. We're never short a stock like this because if it is being driven by some chat room chatter somewhere, which probably has to be the case, because how can you explain a move of 38% in like 9 days? I mean, well, 2 weeks, let's call it. Actually, it's got to be more than that. In like say 3 weeks, but regardless, you get what I'm saying. It's just it can't. It just isn't sustainable. Let's see if they say anything on their website about the if they've commented on the move.
See this comment here from Heather?
Housing starts rose 7%. Let's see here. Investor relations, fact sheet, press releases. Genie, this came out yesterday. All right, so there's really no news. They're going to report on the 20 or on the 6th. Kind of interesting though how that's not in the news over here. I mean, that's an official press release. You think that these guys would have picked it up? I mean, maybe they have, I don't know. Do they have like maybe some kind of green energy thing that people are into?
Mark, I never heard of them until you started looking at it yesterday. I usually don't know anything about these companies. I'm just trading the chart.
This Genie Solar. Let's see here. See what these guys do. Genie Energy specializes in renewable energy.
No, that's why. They must have got an infusion of cash.
That well, you know what, that would be something that could change the game. But I would think if they would have announced that, because that would be like, beneficial to the company.
But do they have to though? When the government releases funds to them, if they get a big fat $2 billion check from Joe Biden, do they have to say anything about that?
I mean, I would think so.
I mean, it would have
Because
to
it's
show up in your
material.
earnings, I would think, but I don't think you'd have to announce, "Hey, we just got a big check from the government." It would show up in the statement.
So when did this start? I'm just wondering if this. Do you think this is going to have anything to do with the war over there?
Well, it
This
started
is
2 days
Israel.
before the war. It was on the 7th. The war started. This started on the 5th.
Yeah, well, maybe someone knows something,
Maybe.
because it says Israel oil and gas is something that they're involved in.
Oh, that makes plenty of sense then, doesn't it?
Well, this is a situation where if I was thinking about investing in this company, I would probably call them up and ask to speak to investor relations and be like, "What the hell is going on with your stock?" And usually they don't comment, but you could look for things like if you notice in some of the insiders start to sell.
Ain't nobody selling there, Mark.
Well, I don't know, but I just know that companies that have, if there's no news, moves like this really can't be sustainable. So let's see. So this is where the Israel war broke out. Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I don't know enough about it, but I certainly would keep an eye on it. Let's see, media opportunities. Yeah, they're hiring people. That's a good sign. Hiring a lot of people. Genie Solar Cells.
Boom, there you go.
Genie Retail Energy.
Doing that in Newark too. I bet you Bob Menendez had something to do with that.
Maybe, you know what? Maybe they found some gold bars in the CEO's house. They revalued the company.
Oh, Gold Bar Bob.
SEC filings. Yeah, I mean they have it now. Yeah, I mean, look at this has to have something to do with what's going on in Israel, because look at the names: Avi Golden, Michael Stein, Alan Rosenthal. I don't know what though. I'm not that smart to figure it out, but it would be a little kind of an interesting project to look into. I don't know. I don't know. I don't want to get too conspiratorial, but I don't know what it could be. But all right, I'm going to get going unless anyone has any questions. Remember, we are not going to be here tomorrow morning because hopefully they will be putting in my new cable tomorrow at this time.
Thank God.
Yeah. All right, everyone. Thank you so much, and we'll see you all tomorrow.
New outro today, guys. Stick around and watch it. Have a great day.